Hamas has started to move the remaining Israeli hostages above ground in order to use them as human shields as Israel begins its final push to conquer Gaza City in Phase 2 of Operation Gideon's Chariots. Over 320,000 civilians have already fled. Hamas appears to be collapsing, and they are now getting extremely desperate. At the same time, the UN is rewarding terror by pushing for a Palestinian state, while Arab leaders gather in Qatar to condemn Israel. The battle lines are being drawn, and the choice between good and evil has never been more obvious. Israel is gearing up for Phase 2 of Operation Gideon's Chariots to take over Gaza City. They've been urging the civilians to leave for weeks now. So far, 320,000 people have left the city, with 20,000 fleeing overnight just last night. Many more people would have left by now if Hamas had not been forcing them to stay. They were even setting up checkpoints on the city limits to make sure that no one leaves. Because if there are no civilians there, then they would have no human shields, and the IDF would be able to wipe them out so much easier. But now, Hamas is trying to use the hostages as well for human shields. Khan News reported that they were now being moved above ground, with Palestinian sources reporting that some were being held in houses and some in tents. The pressure is on Hamas. Their leadership was just destroyed in Qatar. Israel is destroying terror site after terror site in Gaza. The IDF has hit over 500 terror targets in Gaza City in recent days, including multiple high-rise buildings, which I'm sure you've seen lots of footage of. Now, with Israel on the final push to destroy the last major stronghold of Gaza, Hamas is pulling out the hostages in an attempt to either, number one, use them as human shields, or number two, to get a ceasefire deal back on the table, which would be amazing for them. And speaking of a ceasefire, Qatar has announced that they're ready to reopen negotiation talks, with Trump saying this.
My message is this: they have to be very, very careful. They have to do something about Hamas. But Qatar has been a great ally to the United States. A lot of people don't know that. I told the Emir, who I think is a wonderful person, actually, I said, you need better public relations, because you don't really get the public relations. I mean, people talk of it so badly, and they shouldn't be. Qatar's been a very great ally. So Israel and everybody else, we have to be careful. When we attack people, we have to be careful.
Also, some 50 Arab and the Islamic officials are gathering in Qatar for an emergency summit. Nearly 50 ministers and senior officials representing the Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation are taking part in the discussions, and they're meeting earlier in the day before the summit to prepare a draft statement. They will most likely condemn Israel's strikes on the Hamas leaders, but they may also possibly call for some kind of boycott on Israel as well. It looks like this is a pretty big event, with over 200 local and foreign journalists covering the whole event. In a minute, we're going to get into another massive event that is happening September 22nd. But first, Magen David Adom is Israel's emergency services system, which means that they're the first ones on the scene at every single terror attack, every car accident, heart attack, whether it's terror related or not. They dispatch every single ambulance in the nation. They receive thousands of emergency phone calls every single day. They are the ones who are on the front lines of this 7-front war that Israel is still facing. Since October 7th, they've saved thousands of lives, continuing to do so every single day. They need our help, though. With Israel's resources strained to the breaking point with the ongoing war, Magen David Adom needs more emergency vehicles, bandages, medical supplies, and so much more to respond to every terror attack and every other daily emergency that's happening here in Israel. People ask us all the time what they can do to bless Israel during this war. And honestly, this is one of the best ways that you can do that. You can be a part of making sure Magen David Adom is equipped with everything that they need to save more lives here in Israel. Just go to savelivesinisrael.com to make a real difference today, or just click the link in the description below. The United Nations General Assembly on Friday overwhelmingly endorsed a declaration outlining, quote, tangible, time-bound, and irreversible steps to promote a Palestinian state. 142 countries voted in favor of this declaration, and 10 voted against, among them, of course, being the United States and Israel. Yes, you heard that right. 142 countries actually want to reward terrorism and create a Palestinian state. This declaration also calls for a, quote, collective action to end the war in Gaza to achieve a just, peaceful, and lasting settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict based on the effective implementation of the two-state solution. All of this comes ahead of the UN summit that is happening in New York on September 22nd, co-hosted by Saudi Arabia and France, where Britain, France, Canada, Australia, and Belgium, among others, are expected to formally recognize a Palestinian state. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, I will say what we have said a million times before on this channel. A Palestinian state in the heart of Israel would be straight up suicide for the nation of Israel. We actually did a whole series on this exact topic. You should definitely check it out. I'll link it in the description below if you want to check it out after this video. But if you thought that giving away Gaza was bad enough, with the Palestinians immediately electing a terror group and turning the Gaza Strip into a living hellhole that has fired thousands of rockets into Israel and eventually led up to the horrific massacre on October 7th, then just imagine with me how much worse a Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria would be. You know, here on the mountains of Samaria, on the Mount of Blessing, we have the views. You can clearly see all of the major coastal cities of Israel. You can even see ships out on the Mediterranean Sea on a clear day. Now picture thousands of Palestinian terrorists perched on these exact same mountains with all of their rocket and missile launchers aimed directly at 70% of the population of Israel, and tell me that giving this land to the Palestinians is a good idea. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danone, said this, quote, the only beneficiary is Hamas. When terrorists are the ones cheering, you are not advancing peace, you are advancing terror. Israel's foreign ministry said that they utterly reject the decision. Ministry spokesman Oren Marmerstein posted on X, there's no reference to the simple fact that Hamas is solely responsible for the continuation of the war through its refusal to return the hostages and disarm. The resolution does not advance a solution of peace. On the contrary, it encourages Hamas to continue the war. Something to note is that this upcoming summit in New York is set to take place the exact same day that Rosh Hashanah actually starts here in Israel. Rosh Hashanah is the new year here in Israel, but it's also known as the Day of Judgment, when everyone's names are either written in the Book of Life or they're not. To me, it feels like the line between good and evil is becoming crystal clear. The choice to be on the right side of history has never been so obvious. In the days leading up to Rosh Hashanah, let's make that choice to stand for what is right, for what is holy, for what is true. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one.